when I realized that, and this just happened maybe a year ago, I asked a group of dentists, they were new and older dentists, and I said, "How many complete exams have you done in your life?" The first question was, "What is a complete exam? What things do you have to have in a complete exam?" And most of them said, "I've never done a complete exam," and that just floored me. And I have a son-in-law that's a dentist, and he's in the Navy he's in the Navy now. And it's interesting to talk to him about dentistry. And people go to dental school and they come out knowing all about bacteria in the mouth and tooth by tooth dentistry. But that really is not the full picture if you really want to get into some great cases. I learned that dentists need a way to learn. And I discovered all these CE courses, and Dawson Academy was one of them. And because they are the ones who helped me create this software, they're the ones who I studied. And I thought, gosh, these dentists who come out of school, they don't really learn this stuff. They don't really know how to do a complete exam and what they're really missing out on when they don't do a complete exam, when they skip steps, etc. And like I said, once I developed this for them, and I had people telling me, "Hey, we can't live without the software. We have to have this software in order to do dentistry now because we've had it for a few years and this is the way we do it. But when people come into my office, I use this tool and this is what walks me through it and steps through it." And I've heard all kinds of stories from that to into a case where there was a specific doctor that was being sued over their dentistry. And I used the Smile Wizard to walk these people step by step through the complete exam and the complete diagnosis. And the lawyers themselves were asking this dentist, "How can we get a hold of this software? You have completely saved this person's case because you've helped us go through the Dawson Academy. We don't see this anywhere." And another, because you've done the Smile Wizard, and we've never seen this before. I have other stories of where they'll walk into an office and they'll say, "Hey, I went to another dentist and this is what we're up against. I've never had, we don't know what's going on. I'm breaking things in my mouth. I've had dentistry in my mouth that's now, ruined."
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dentman Podcast. Masood, what episode are we on? 2,500?
No, dog. We're over 1 million now at this point.
Yeah, me and Masood keep going from like 100 to 50 to we don't know where we at, but we'll take it as we go. Today, actually, before our podcast, we had a very interesting conversation. Today, we have the founder and CEO of a Smile Wizard, Mr. Travis. Mr. Travis, welcome to the Dentman Podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so happy that the industry is giving us some weird but yet positive feedback about our podcast. So that's a good sign that we're doing something.
Yeah, that's right.
You said you don't know what that first part meant, but the second part was good. So we'll take the second part.
Right.
Yes. Well, Mr. Travis, I'm always interested when the guest comes on because I found that everything that the industry has to offer with dental, there's something unique about it. And what I really want to know about, first I want you to introduce yourself to our guests. And the second thing is I really want to know why you do what you do, because I think what you're doing is unique for the industry, but I really want to know the reasoning behind why you started what you started and why you continue doing it.
So my name is Travis Wilhelmsen. I am the founder of Smile Wizard. The reason that I do this is, and I was telling you guys this a little bit earlier, is because I found something that really works. My past history is, I've created products around education and helping dentists to understand certain procedures. We had a product that was all about dental patient education. And so my passion for patient education and helping people learn and grow and understand and move really kind of lit a fire under me. And I'm a mechanical engineering by degree, but certainly not by profession now. when I realized that, and this just happened maybe a year ago, I asked a group of dentists. They were new and older dentists, and I said, "How many complete exams have you done in your life?" The first question was, "What is a complete exam? What things do you have to have in a complete exam?" And most of them said, "I've never done a complete exam," and that just floored me. And I have a son-in-law that's a dentist, and he's in the Navy he's in the Navy now. And it's interesting to talk to him about dentistry. And people go to dental school and they come out knowing all about bacteria in the mouth and tooth by tooth dentistry. But that really is not the full picture if you really want to get into some great cases. I learned that dentists need a way to learn. And I discovered all these CE courses, and Dawson Academy was one of them. And because they are the ones who helped me create this software, they're the ones who I studied. And I thought, gosh, these dentists who come out of school, they don't really learn this stuff. They don't really know how to do a complete exam and what they're really missing out on when they don't do a complete exam, when they skip steps, etc. And like I said, once I developed this for them, and I had people telling me, "Hey, we can't live without the software. We have to have this software in order to do dentistry now because we've had it for a few years, and this is the way we do it. But when people come into my office, I use this tool, and this is what walks me through it and steps through it." And I've heard all kinds of stories from that too. I went into a case where there was a specific doctor that was being sued over their dentistry, and I used the Smile Wizard to walk these people step by step through the complete exam and the complete diagnosis. And the lawyers themselves were asking this dentist, "How can we get a hold of this software? You have completely saved this person's case because you've helped us go through the Dawson Academy. We don't see this anywhere." And not that because you've done the Smile Wizard. And, we've never seen this before. I have other stories of where they'll walk into an office and they'll say, "Hey, I went to another dentist and this is what we're up against. I've never had, we don't know what's going on. I'm breaking things in my mouth. I've had dentistry in my mouth that's now, ruined, etc." After they go through the Smile Wizard and they show the doctor or they show the patient exactly what the treatment plan will be and how the other dentist failed, and they give them all that information, they're writing checks and they're saying, "Why would we go see anybody else? Nobody else has given us what you've given us. Therefore, we know we've found the right place." And after stories like that, it's hard to describe the feelings that you have when you're helping people do those things, when you're helping these doctors who come out of dental school not necessarily knowing or understanding that side of dentistry. It lights a fire under you. And people come to you and say, "I love this product," but at the same time, you know, it it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to follow a protocol, unfortunately. They sort of want to do their own dentistry. They don't want to follow guidance of this kind. But at the end of the day, what I've found is it really works for people. Steps are not missed. People are invigorated by dentistry again. They have a lot of confidence in their dentistry all of a sudden, and it just makes them happy. It makes them better dentists.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, the one thing that you mentioned that I found interesting because, as a practicing dentist, I do exams day in, day out. The one thing I want to know is that, so you talked about your software and you talked about the kind of the gap that you tried to close was that complete exam. So when the dentist is you utilizing your software, what is that complete exam looking like? Why is that? Because, for example, for me, or any practice I've been to, the exam hygienist goes in, X-rays being taken, they do the probing, things like that. So what is that complete exam with your software looking like that kind of gives that more structure? What's the differentiation that you guys what problem are you addressing in that process?
Well, first of all, it's a complete exam. And when I say complete exam, It is not an exam that's going to take 15 minutes. Just the muscle exam and the muscle palpation is going to take at least that long. And you don't stop with the muscles. You're examining the joints, and you're understanding the joints. You're understanding the airway. There's a bunch of air questions, and the software will not actually let you continue if there's any airway issues. Those obviously need to be addressed first. We go through the loading of the joints, and there's 5 rules or requirements when you're going to load the joints, and the exam goes through each one of those steps. And you know, everything from figuring out what the Mallampati score of that person's mouth is, and you're doing this with every patient that comes through. And Dr. Dawson, what he preached was, you need to become a physician of the masticatory system. You need to understand when those muscles fire. You need to understand why, if there's a lot of the instructors talk about a hammer and a nail, how the bottom teeth, the edges of the bottom teeth, you need to define where those need to be in space. I used to, when we first started talking about this type of exam, the only way that I really understood it was I said the Dawson Academy understands where every tooth is supposed to go and its orientation. And they talk a lot about occlusion as well, and how that occlusion is so important. And if you mess up the occlusion, you're going to have issues inside of that mouth. You're going to have stops or something on the teeth. The worst thing you can probably do is have a hit and slide on your back teeth, and the reasons why that is. And basically, starting to understand why it's so important. And so all of those things really go into a complete exam. I actually created basically a list of questions. I think there's like 30 questions that go through and have dentists evaluate how often they're doing certain things. Like, I'm just going to grab, like, if you're not asking a question like, does the patient snore? If you don't ask that, you don't understand it, and therefore you're missing some data about the airway, right? Is the patient in centric relation when the patient is in maximum intercuspation? If you don't understand that, you probably don't understand occlusion. And there's some things that you're missing out on. There's some things that you're skipping that you could be asking. I had a doctor just say to me the other day, after he looked at this, he said, it was so interesting. He said, I don't ask my patients if they're happy with their smile. I just don't. I never have. It never occurred to me that I could do this, and that would be a valuable question for me. And that opened my eyes, and I was like, okay, because therein lies a lot of aesthetic dentistry. And if you're not asking, then they're not going to give you the information. They're just going to say, okay, well, they're obviously not interested in that. There's nothing they want to do about that. Therefore, I'm not going to ask it. And so, all of those types of questions get asked in this complete exam.
Yeah, I love that, because that takes me back. Honestly, that takes me back to a lot of the classes that I took in dental school. Then a lot of it was just about, ever since I graduated, not to kind of put my business out there, but these are the type of information that we don't really pay attention to as a general dentist. So I can agree with you, like Mallampati scores, we don't pay attention to that anymore because it's not part of what we do. It's not part of, do I need to care about this? How is it going to affect my patient? But yes, if you're talking about that kind of things, I absolutely agree with you. Like, some of the dentists don't really truly focus. They focus on patient coming, get the treatment, get their cleaning, and go about their day. We don't really go in depth and detail of understanding where patient need to be. And sometimes those things long term become problematic for that patient. So I think what you guys are doing, because that's what dental school, that they try to teach you these things textbook, right? But
Yes.
when we leave dental school, we kind of like let those go and just say, it's not important anymore, whatever they try. But as you mentioned, those are important. Those are
Yeah.
the things that can affect patients' sleeping habits. It can affect their occlusion, how they're biting, how things are. And a lot of time that's the absolutely one of those beneficial information to have, because I could tell you, I had a patient just yesterday. He got a crown in January. The patient, the dentist that previously worked on him, did not have a data about that patient occlusion, put the crown on, and the patient, that tooth went from being a crown and turned into a root canal because the occlusion was never corrected the way it was supposed to. So I
Right.
think the data is so important to have to really be able to save the patient a lot of the problems that they run into. So I agree
Yeah.
with that.
And a lot of times what we hear is they start to have confidence in their dentistry. Because if you think about it, if you treat every case as if I'm going to walk through these steps and I'm going to go methodically through all of these, you start to gain confidence in what you're doing because you start to find things that you otherwise wouldn't have known or wouldn't have, like you just said, you know, and a lot of people, I think this happens, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but they start to do dentistry the way they want to do dentistry. Like they take their hands off the wheel, and if I don't see it, then it's not that important because I'm a dentist and I understand these things. Well, a lot of, there was a book written by Atul Gawande called The Checklist Manifesto. And what he proves in there, I highly recommend this if you want to read it. What he says in there is we don't necessarily, here, I'm going to get the quote right. I have it here. We don't fail because we don't know. We fail because we forget. And so when you're asked to go in and evaluate this, you can't necessarily just rely on your memory to do it. You have to set up a structure around your dentistry so that you don't forget steps, so that you don't think something is unimportant, so you don't check it, and down the road it's going to bite you.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I agree with that because a lot of time the dentists that I talk to, that's kind of like becomes, I think the conversation in the industry, what they call it essentially is like, I'm a bread and butter dentistry. I don't do anything else. I do fillings, I do crowns. That's it. They don't want to get their hands into anything else. They don't want to involve themselves. They don't want to, some dentists don't even want to learn new things. They just want to stick to what they know. And but I absolutely agree. I think the patient will benefit from it if you go through those steps and really stick to the way you're supposed to do things. And I think I agree with that 100% because then you're saving yourself, you save the patient a lot of the headache that they need to go through. The question I have is, as far as the software and the development of it is, I know like me and Masood, Masood, he's a founder of an AI company. We're building Dentman in the back, so I know the software development side of it is a very challenging part of it. How have you kind of like, like you said, Dawson said, hey, we're not a software company, but you're in your engineering. How are you kind of staying up to date with the technology, with the AI? Are you implementing anything into your platforms? How are you guys utilizing that to kind of bring better? How are you implementing that into your platform?
Well, that's a great question. And we have been developing some AI, and I think it's amazing technology. I absolutely love it. It is changing our lives. There's no question about it. So the way that I would talk about that is to say this. As I've looked into it and I've seen a lot of people advertising and saying, hey, we have, how would you like to have 1,000 or more dentists from the industry telling you exactly how to do this dentistry? Because we have access to that online now. You can go and ask anybody, how do I do this? Or what do I do here? What do I do there? And you can actually get a lot from there. If I was to ask the best dentists, if they want 100 other dentists or 100, maybe 1,000 other dentists helping them with their dentistry, I think that they would say, no, I don't want that. That's the last thing I want because I don't want the consensus of the many to dictate how I'm going to do dentistry. I would rather have Pete Dawson or LD Pankey or John Spear or any of these other dentists over my shoulder because they're the ones that are going to do it right. They're the ones that are going to say, slow down. They're the ones that are going to say, ask these questions, record this data, gather these records, and do it the right way. So we've actually built an engine that we've actually tested this with. It's not implemented in the software yet, but it's very, very much excellent dentistry. Obviously I'm somewhat biased because I know the Dawson Academy the best, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what you want. You want the dentist at the level to which you're willing to jump to. And if you can get that, then you'll be, you were talking about dentists maybe that I don't want to do all that. I don't want to learn new stuff. I don't want to do this. And that's all fine and good. And somebody can have a good dental practice. They can make good money and everything is fine. But those are the dentists that will become ready to quit. They fall out of love with dentistry. They don't see the exciting side of dentistry anymore. And that isn't what we want in the industry. We'll want everybody to be energized. And dentists that are being energized, they're learning new things. They're striving to be the dentist that everybody wants to go to. That's where fulfillment is had in dentistry. And if you do this type of dentistry, if you pay attention and you truly become a physician of the masticatory system, things open up for you. And you're able to actually have less patients and more dentistry to do. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard these dentists that actually teach in these academies say, I did it for this person. They told their friend, and now I'm going to do it for this person. And they told their spouse, and now I'm going to do it for this person. And it's all of these, it's bigger dentistry, it's larger dentistry, it's more sophisticated dentistry, but you become confident in it to where you can do these things. And it's like anything else. If you're training to be a gold medalist, you're going to try and fail and try and fail and try and fail. But it's in the struggle where you reach success. It's in doing it and time after time and training yourself and trusting the process, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such an amazing message when it comes to essentially the way we do things and how we do it. I was having a conversation with a prosthodontist recently, and the one thing that he said was, he said, the one thing that makes me sad, he was an older dentist, but he was saying that the CE courses has kind of died down in dentistry. Like, he's like, we don't see a lot of dentists attending them. He's like, I start doing a lot of like small group in my own house where I bring the dentists in, I try to teach them and stuff. Do you think that the CE courses are valuable for the dentist? Because I think if you're not attending those CE courses, like, Spear, Dawson, and all these other ones, to kind of learn about these new techniques, it seems like it's becoming really cold fit for the dentist to attend them. Why do you think that is? And if that's the case, do you think there is a shift that's going to happen with the AI and with the technology and everything else? Do you think the technology is making the dentist lazy in a way?
Well, in a lot of ways, it really is. It's interesting. Pete Dawson used to talk about this, and he used to say, I wish I had the quote, but he used to say something like, the only thing that technology is going to do is allow you to fail faster. If you don't understand the principles and you don't go back to the basics, it's the law of the farm that's talked about in the 7 Habits book. You will fail. It will fail. The only thing that the AI is going to do is allow you to fail faster. Unless the AI tells you to slow down, tells you to, all of these other things. Because if you put half of the data into AI, it's going to give you a half solution, and that's not good enough. You have to be able to have the complete diagnosis, the complete, all of the data, all of the information in order to get to the best solution. It's just the way it works. Now, maybe down the road when, it gets more and more sophisticated, maybe that complete picture will be there. Who am I to say that it won't be? I love technology. It's one of the reasons I went into mechanical engineering. I just, to me, it's anything that I can invent, is awesome. I love that world. And so I love AI. I love that that's coming. But again, we got to be careful with it and we got to do it the right way.
And Travis, because you are like in the intersection of education and technology, how do you see AI changing that? Because right now, like, you can pretty much get access to any kind of information that you want. Like, it's very easy to pretty much learn anything. So, how do you see that changing the educational landscape and also how these courses with other people are made?
I think that the information gathering is very, very helpful. And if you have a very specific question and you ask AI, it's going to give you a very specific answer. And I think that's awesome. And if you understand the context by which it's giving you that answer, there's no problem with it. You will completely succeed. And let's say you ask it 10 questions. How you correlate those 10 questions together and what you're really trying to get after or get the solution to starts to get a little bit fuzzy. And so if it's coordinated in the right way, 100%, it's going to give you the right answers and it can probably even help you, but it will never teach you the discipline that you need. Right? It will give you information, absolutely. And if it tells you to ask these certain questions when you do it, absolutely, you're taking a step in the right direction for sure. But until it can give you the complete picture, I think it will fall a little bit short. And so getting the information is one thing, putting it together in a structure that helps you be a better dentist is something completely different.
One thing that you mentioned that I really liked was the discipline part. That it's not just about the information, but it's the fact that you need to be disciplined to learn how to do these things. And those two, like, pretty much go together, and you can never separate them. So when you are creating these courses, because actually me and Milad are in the process of creating something like a business university for dentists. How do you go about creating these courses to make sure that you convey both messages, both the information and also the discipline and pretty much the execution metrics that goes with it? Because you can learn it in theory, but it's going to be so much different in execution.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And if you can train, well, I want to say train AI, but you're not really training AI. If AI can train you to have the discipline, and to do the due diligence, I think that's amazing. People, there's a law of, I think it's the law of forgetfulness where you can learn something in a course and 1 week later, you only retain about 10% of what you've learned. That's incredible, right? Well, with AI, if it helps you structure that and it puts these processes in place for you, you can continue to use that and keep going. And I don't think there's any harm in that. You were talking about the getting these courses. You're always going to have the same thing, right? The dentist is the dentist is the dentist, which means you have to be the one making these decisions. You can't rely on information that you get from somewhere else in order to make certain decisions around what you're going to do. It can point you in that right direction, no question. It can give you the good information. But unless you know enough and unless you're willing to be, again, disciplined around those things, it's probably going to steer you in the wrong direction. If you put courses together, like I think these CE courses are great. And you can imagine that since I've been really kind of involved in this since like 2010, I've seen over 15 years how these things have changed. For example, airway has jumped to the top of to the front of the list when it comes to doing a diagnosis, right? Or when it comes to doing an exam. That didn't used to be there in 2010. Well, now it is. We've learned more. Well, there's all kinds of other things that are there. But the things that haven't changed are the basics, the fundamentals. People tend to start to get away from those. There's a lot of dentists out there that say, "Well, I can get an exam done in 15 minutes." Well, you're kind of moving in the wrong direction because unless you realize the foundation of that, and again, all of these CE courses and credits, there's not a lot of differences in them. We have solved how to do dentistry and AI is going to bring it right back into our face. But it's the fundamentals, it's the basics, I think, that don't change. And until you systemize those and put them into a way that just makes it so that you're kind of doing the same thing. It's a system. Another thing that Dr. Dawson used to say is Mastery through structure. Mastery through structure. If you set up the right structure, whether if it's with AI or with your own discipline, that structure will help you do better dentistry. But it's a process. It's a learned process, and it becomes a discipline.
That's quite awesome. You actually hit on a few points that pretty much tells me like the education cannot necessarily just be strictly like a digital format, but if it isn't a digital format, like you have to assign the educators to go ahead and do something and try to like learn it through doing. And I think that's usually the best way of doing it,
Yes,
the
100%
best way of
agree.
learning it.
Yeah. And a lot of people that go through these courses, I'm not going to pretend that they all come out as Pete Dawson. Absolutely, they don't. They will pick and choose which things that they will adhere to and which things they will not adhere to. The more you adhere to, the better off you're going to be. I mean, the Smile Wizard is sort of the courses in a software package that enforce the rules around your dentistry. And I will tell you this, you read this book by Atul Gawande, and there's surgeons that don't follow checklists, and they lean on their own intuition, and people die. And that's probably an extreme case of these, but when they do implement these checklists in these, lives are saved. I think they took mainline blood draws from, I can't remember what the stats are, but reduced it significantly. And the only difference they were doing was implementing these checklists and putting these checklists in place to make sure that steps weren't skipped. And you think, how simple is the checklist? Well, a lot of people shy away from them and don't have the discipline around them, and they ultimately pay the price.
Yeah, that's amazing. The one thing that Mr. Travis you mentioned is, I don't know what it is, but dentistry, any other profession, but I believe dentistry, both on the clinical and the business side, that the topic around the systems has become such a big thing, because it feels like if you don't have systems in place, both your business and you clinically, you're gonna struggle. Why do you think? And and like you said, some of the medical doctors probably don't need this as much, but I feel like dentistry, in particular, needs so many systems for you to function and function the best way. I mean, we had dentist CEOs, Dr. Hughes, Dr. Ahmed, a lot of different doctors that have can come on our podcast. And the biggest thing they mention is like, you got to have systems in place. Why do you think dentistry having that system is such an important thing? But like you mentioned, like a small wizard, you guys are putting the system for you to do that complete exam. There are systems for you to do your RCMs, to do everything else. Why do you think that system is like the cornerstone of a success in the business of dentistry and the clinical?
So let me talk about my own story. I haven't always worked for myself. I haven't always owned this company, this product, etc. And when I decided to do this, I started, we redeveloped the software on a better platform, and we put it out there, and instantly we were making money because these people were addicted to it. They had to practice dentistry by doing it this way, which is awesome. Those are the people that loved structure. Well, I can't sleep in until 10, 11, 12 in the morning because my business would crumble, right? I wouldn't be doing the due diligence to my customers that I know I need to be. All of a sudden, I found myself in a situation where I could do whatever I wanted. I could spend my time the way that I wanted, etc. It became very scary to me that I wasn't being disciplined around my own business. A lot of these dentists will get into a situation where all of a sudden they're in charge of the practice. They're running everything, and it's very overwhelming, which is why I think people like the ideas of a DSO, is because all of a sudden they have some help and that adds some structure. If you're doing it on your own, it's a lot harder to have that structure around you. One of the things they tell you is you need to know your KPIs. You need to know how you're doing on a day-to-day basis in order to make the decisions that you need to to grow, to thrive, to grow your business. And in a dental office, it's, grow your pond of fish, so to speak. And when you operate without the discipline, when you operate outside of the discipline, you have the opportunity to fail. And it's the discipline around each topic, right? If I want to get big muscles, if I want to be lean, I have to dedicate the time to doing it. And it's sort of a process that grows on itself. If I miss a month, I'm back to square one, sort of. I lose out on a lot more. The discipline around knowing your KPIs, about knowing where your appointments are, is one thing. Your financial KPIs, you have to adhere to those things. It's the same when you're practicing the dentistry side of the business as well. When you do the business side, there's some, and that's why I love that you say you want to do this business side of dentistry. That to me speaks volumes, because people don't go to school for that, or the dentists don't go to school for that. They have to learn that the hard way. And if there's anything that kind of helps them in their journey to be better at that and to become disciplined around those things, you're going to be a better business owner, a better business leader. If you give your people vision is another thing that your people have to understand, that the people that work for you have to know where you're going in order to fall, and to know where they're participating in, getting you there where where you need to go. And so it's just as important on the business side as it is on the dentist side. And the more you can be disciplined around running your business, the better off your systems are going to be, the more confident you're going to be. If you let things go by the wayside, you're going to be lost, and it's lost. And I've heard stories of dentists. Some guy, he was practicing on roller skates or something, and there was lawsuits involved. And that is an example of me taking my hands off the wheel and just kind of willy-nilly trying to be a dentist, and willy-nilly trying to run a business, and willy-nilly trying to do this and that, and just, relying on my own intuition. If you rely on your own intuition, things break down.
And Travis, that's amazing. And thank you for the confirmations. Like while you were talking, Mila in the background was like saying, Masood, hear that, hear that. Like every day you're giving up on me. That's not true, Doc. I'm never giving up on you. It's been a year and a half we're working together. One thing that I was going to ask Travis, because you already went through this journey and you did it once, how do you think we should approach it? Building a website with a lot of business courses for dentists.
I think that anything that you can do, you definitely put the topics out there. And the way that I would structure it is like this. I would say you got to know your KPIs, which KPIs are important. Here's a course that's going to teach you about those. Here's the structure in your office. If you have an office manager, for example, these are the things that they're in charge of. Courses that teach people the best ways to do these things. And these systems are completely repeatable. You've got to have a vision. You need to teach them about that. You need to teach them about how to, and see, here's another thing that's really, really interesting is that I learned in the Dawson Academy that they talk about is every time you interact with a patient, that patient is being prepped for their journey through your office. And so a lot of people don't realize that. So when you get a new customer on the phone, you have to have a certain way of talking to them. You have to start telling them that in so many words, that there's a reason why they need to go to the dentist. Something is wrong usually, or they don't like their smile, but everything you do has to point them towards the treatment that you're going to give them. They may not want to stop at the filling or the crown. They may not be ready to do much past that. But if every time you have a conversation with them, or anybody in your office has a conversation with them, express concern about where they may end up. And it's not like you're lying to them. You're just giving them the honest truth of, this is what I'm concerned because of X, Y, and Z. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but you own this problem. And, I've presented your options for you. You can choose whatever you want to do, but you own these options, because as soon as you own it as the dentist and it becomes your problem, you're messed up. But everything along the line of how to treat patients, what to talk to patients about, how to do your KPIs, how to incentivize people inside the office, all of those things have been handled by somebody. We have the answers to these things. We can get that information. But again, it goes back to what? It goes back to the discipline. You know it. Are you going to implement it? And are you going to continue to implement it? And are you going to continue to be disciplined around that thing? And
Yeah,
and again, it's just for the business side, but also around your dentistry. You know, are you going to ask the right questions? Are you going to build the right treatment plan and give it to them in a way that they understand it? So there's,
yeah,
there's both sides of that. And if you're not willing to be disciplined around anything, and you want to be a willy-nilly kind of, fly by the seat of my pants dentist, then I don't think you're going to get the right clients. Maybe you are. Maybe you're going to get the exact right customers that you want, the exact right patients that you want. And I think you will. But if you elevate your dentistry, you will elevate your patient base, in my opinion.
absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with that. And the part that you mentioned is, when the conversation with Masood came about, putting the whole Dentman platform together, I always talk to Masood about this, and I just said there is such a big gap in our industry when it comes to the business side of dentistry, and it's sad to see that this bigger organization, the ADA, even the dental schools, they know that these problems exist, but they never do anything to address it, and that's the part that bothered me always. That like, why is that these bigger organizations doesn't address it, but we as a team can kind of came together and just said we have to address this, because the future of dentistry, like you mentioned, we don't know nothing about the business, and then we're running into all these problems that are just not necessary. you know a lot of things are being learned the hard way, and that's the part that I don't enjoy about dentistry, because a lot of it becomes through the trial and error. Those things going to cost you time and money. The final question that I want to ask you, Mr. Travis, with a small wizard, what is the future is going to be like? Where you guys are really trying to go in the next couple of years? What are you really hoping to accomplish with your organization? And what are some of the new things that you guys are thinking about implementing into your software?
As far as implementing into our software, we definitely want to do the AI component. And like I said, our software is a little bit strict as far as like what you can do and things. What I want to do is open that up. And so we want to create it such that it doesn't matter what philosophy you follow, whether it's Dawson, Pankey, Spear, any of these others. We want it to work for you. And so we want to relax that a little bit, allow people to, for example, when you go through the checklist, there's like 14 tabs that you go through to get a complete exam. If you want to start out doing 10 of those, so be it. If you want to start out and you upload photos so that you can do some diagnostics and measurements and different things inside the mouth, maybe you don't want to do all of them. That's fine. So that's one thing that we want to do. We want to put AI into there. We want to have somebody like a Pete Dawson. He's passed on, unfortunately, but we want to have his mindset as the AI tool. We want to have him commenting on, if you've done your complete exam, what does Pete Dawson think that you should be doing now? What steps should you take? How should you present this to the patient, et cetera? That's another thing that we want to put in there. We don't integrate with a lot of practice management systems at this time, but I don't think people want to pay for it anyway. So if we can get cooperation from them, we will absolutely do that. We want to put financial things in place to where this AI component. We would love that to be able to look at the schedule in the office and suggest where to put these things. If somebody buys off on treatment, get a financial um, thing in place so that they can pay for it over time, et cetera. So there's a lot of things that we want to do. And people are just asking us all the time more and more and more to do these things. I resist a lot of change because I think in order to scale, we need to simplify. And so I don't want to make it too complicated. I believe so much in this vision of that it can just help doctors do the right thing. You know, I would like to evangelize that all over the place. And I want to know people who are willing to do that. People that want to learn this process, learn the structure so that they can do these things, so they can grow their dentistry and become confident and make dentistry exciting again. And so I try to strike a balance between those two things and keeping it simple but very, very useful, etc. So I hope that answers your question.
No, it absolutely does. Well, one thing I could tell you as a dentist, I always like things to be as simple as possible, because when it gets complex, I'm like, if my staff had to spend time trying to figure it out, I'm like, it's not good. Throw it out. So I
Right.
agree. Keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah,
Simplicity is
exactly.
the key. Simplicity is the
Yes.
key. Well, Mr. Travis, I want to thank you so much for hopping on. You really, truly enjoyed this conversation. I took a lot of notes, especially I'm going to check out the book, Checklist Manifesto. So let's see how that
Yeah.
book is. I always take notes and I go back and check things and see, because I have read a couple of books off the suggestion of the podcast. And so far it's been good. So we'll see what the checklist manifesto looks like. Mr. Travis, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. I hope that we have more of these conversations. I think, the more of these conversations that we have, the more we're able to educate the younger doctors that are coming after me, essentially, to really understand what dentistry is about. That's why I started this podcast. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing with Dentman, because I think it's so important that the
Excellent.
younger dentist understands that what is really truly dentistry is about. Dentistry is just not clinical. It's a business. That's why people like yourself exist. The Smile Visitor exists to make the job for dentists a little bit easier. I'm always grateful for people that are doing things for our industry to make it better, to make it simpler for the dentist. So thank you for what you're doing. I truly appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys as well. This
Thank you,
was a
Mr.
lot funner.
Travis.
This was a lot funner and less abrasive than people told me it would be. I appreciate you guys are
What are
good
people
guys.
talking about us, Doctor? Oh my God. Behind our backs.
Masood, you know what? They always say, if people are talking about you, you're doing something right. If people are
Yeah.
talking about
Uh,
doing something right.
100%.
Let him say whatever they
100%.
want, Travis. It's okay.
Yeah,
We take it.
that's right. Well, I'll tell him.
Well, Mr. Travis, you're always welcome to come back to us. I would love to hear about what you guys are doing. I'm actually, as soon as we get off, I want to check out what you guys are doing, because I think it's very interesting. Because a lot of the things that the dental school teaches, I feel like we kind of walk away from it as we graduate. Like you said, we put our own pants on and we just do whatever, so we don't forget about it. So thank you for everything. Thanks you for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
sir. Thank you.